Hello there, welcome to podcast 100. We finally did it from Football-Oranje, your home of Dutch football. With the World Cup approaching, this is very much a World Cup preview podcast, all about the Netherlands. So get involved by commenting along how you think the Netherlands will get on at this World Cup, and much else besides, because we're here to celebrate 100 podcasts from Football-Oranje. After 5 years of doing this podcast, and 10 years roughly now, isn't it, Mike, of the website happening, Mike has finally prepared his first notes of the podcast. So it must be a special occasion if we can get to 100. We're absolutely delighted. Thanks everyone for obviously helping us get here and being interested in us up until this point. This is available on YouTube, SoundCloud, and Apple Podcasts. So however you want to digest the podcast, go and find it. And much more happening during the World Cup as well. So stay tuned to us on our platforms, namely our website and Twitter as well, throughout the World Cup. Like and subscribe and stick around. With weeks to go then, Mike, what would be success for the Netherlands at this World Cup?
I think that Netherlands are actually going into this tournament quite differently from 2014, last time that we were at the World Cup, where a lot of people fancied Netherlands get knocked out in the group stage, whereas this one, everyone's expecting Netherlands to win their group and get through quite easily. And I think there's actually an expectation now that Netherlands could go quite far in this tournament. I don't think that they're down as one of the favourites, but I think that because of the Nations League and what they've done in that, and how many games they've gone unbeaten under Van Gaal, that there's actually an expectation now that we could actually go quite far. I'm not going to say that it's win it or bust, but this Netherlands side should be at least looking at semi-finals, final for me. That would be success. Quarterfinals would go down as a bit of a disappointment. And if you're Louis Van Gaal, since he's been appointed, he's always talked about getting the best Netherlands side to win the tournament. So if that's what he's going for, then that's really what you need to market against. And I think that you don't write this Netherlands side off. I don't think there's anyone who should really fear, and there's nothing to say right now why they can't go on and win it.
Whilst we don't want to sit here thinking the Netherlands are going to go and win this, that they are one of the favourites, they're not. But it feels like there is a good chance because there aren't many of these countries now, usually the favourites, that are all guns blazing and are firing out results, winning game after game. Actually, it was the Netherlands in the Nations League that showed that they're the current form team in Europe. Doesn't mean that they're the best or the favourites here, but it gives people reason to put a bit of money on the Netherlands if they fancy a bit of an outside bet. Louis Van Gaal has had a great time with them since he's taken charge. 15 games unbeaten since he took over from Frank de Boer after that really quite poor Euro performance, which we all saw coming when you've got Frank de Boer as manager. The squad's not full of star names. There are a few players that are world class. There are a number of players that are playing for very good European clubs, but less than the likes of, say, England, who have got those players to play with, but don't seem to be that well coached at the moment, and things aren't going so well for them. Other countries too throughout Europe. We've not seen the best of Germany in a little while. Belgium just seems to be floundering now with a bit of an aging squad. So who is it that's going to be the favourites? Can the Netherlands get past them? I mean, the group, which we'll talk about a little bit later, is pretty good. It's one they should get through, definitely finishing top of, really. But then it's after that, if the Netherlands are performing well, can they get past either England, USA, possibly Wales, then facing someone like Argentina in the quarterfinal? After that, you're facing the best teams in the tournament, for sure, without a doubt. But a run should definitely be possible. And with Louis Van Gaal, he has done a brilliant job, hasn't he, since taken over. A third time in charge, bit of like a last hurrah for him, because he'll be retiring afterwards, won't he?
Yeah, and as I say, for time lucky, this could be his time to win a World Cup. And I think a lot of people doubted when he came back, thinking he's been out of the game for quite a while. But yeah, I think he's done a fantastic job. And you got to take him. I think he has that sort of aura about him. I think he's an authoritarian. I think that with Frank de Boer, I think some people just not take the mick out of him, but I don't think anybody really listened to him as a head coach because he is a failure as a head coach. So why would you listen to him when you've got Louis Van Gaal coming? He's a legend who demands respect. And he makes the tough decisions as well. Like he's happy to drop somebody like Wijnaldum if he's not playing. He's happy to take out Van de Beek and say, look, you're not going to get back in until you are performing for your club. I think knowing that gets the best of the players, because when they get to there, they want to perform, so make sure that they're in the squad, and that works. And he likes young players as well. He brings them out. He gives chances to the Noah Langs, the Cody Gappos, the Kenneth Taylors during the last international period. These players get chances to come in and press and prove themselves as well. So I think he's a great tactician. The five at the back's worked recently. He's a great man at getting confidence out of it. I think that's everyone just wants to play from as well. And he's a battler, and he's got his illness that he's battling through. He says he's getting through it, and I think that there's a lot of goodwill towards him going into this tournament, and I think the whole Netherlands behind him. Whereas going into Euros, you had everyone saying, "Oh, this is Frank de Boer's team; it's going to be a failure." Whereas I don't think anyone has that with Van Gaal, because I think that everyone wants him to be. This is final tournament. He's going to retire after it. Let's go out with a bang and let's do it for him, sort of thing. Because I think last time in 2014, he really brought the nation together, and that run to the semi-finals, the third place after beating Brazil. Everyone doubted that they were going to get out of the group stage. That 5-1 win over Spain, still probably my favourite game I've ever watched from Netherlands. And I think that if they can produce more moments like that, then Van Gaal has to be up there as battling Rinus Michels as the greatest Netherlands coach of all time, especially if he takes them far in this tournament.
Yeah. What was striking for me when he first came in, he was talking about the formation that Frank de Boer put in, 5 at the back. Originally, he was talking about going back to what the Netherlands tradition was, a 4-3-3. And actually, in the end, he said, well, the strengths of the players are with 5 as a defence. That took some bravery, I guess, but it's not for him. It's not brave, is it? It's what you expect. But it took some bravery for him to go, actually, no, I'm going to stick with what de Boer put in place. He wasn't totally wrong. Actually, it did suit the players. It was just the execution of it and the man management of it all that led to the downfall of de Boer and the team at the Euros. So the turnaround since then has been great. You want the form to peak now, don't you? And you don't want it to come to an end during the World Cup. That brilliant run of unbeaten games. But we saw the same with Italy. They went on to win the Euros, didn't they? With all that brilliant form, unbeaten run. Why can't the Netherlands go and do something very similar here? I'm actually going to put the squad selection on the screen now. So if you wouldn't mind, Mike, just telling me if it just comes up. But this squad selection, he's picked a lot of players, and at the time of speaking, he hasn't actually chosen his final squad. But if you wouldn't mind, can you see that first of all, Mike?
It's still loading. Yep, there we go. That's it.
There we are.
Yeah.
In here, there are some players that are without doubt going to be picked, some key players. Were there any people, first of all, that you were surprised were missing from here?
Surprised is, there's a couple of players I would have added in there, but not necessarily taken to the squad.
Right.
I don't think there's anyone really that is glaringly missing. I think, you could say like Joey Veerman. Maybe he should have been in there because he was in the last provisional. Jordy Schuiten from Bologna, he's picked him before he gave him his debut, and he's not in the provisional. But this is 39 names, and even from this 39, even trying to predict what's going to be the final 26 is difficult. I think that he has some tough choices to make here. So I don't think there's anyone glaringly missing that I would have even put into the final squad, because I think it's difficult enough. The likes of Wijnaldum's out injured. Karsdorp's not really in form at the moment. Van de Beek's come back from injury, he's not playing. So I don't think there's anyone that you could really say is a glaring miss. There's only a couple of players that could have made it that were just left out. But I think that he's got it pretty bang on here with probably the best 39.
Yeah, and he's gone with a few curveballs, hasn't he? He's gone with Frimpong, Xabi Simons, Mickey van der Ven. I don't know how many of those will make it to the final squad. We're talking at a time where there's still time for players to perform in their leagues, for their clubs. They might get picked, might end up being a backup player at the competition. I'm sure some would be delighted to just end up with that role. Some, though, will be thinking, why can't I be the first choice in this position? I guess there's going to be 2 goalkeepers definitely taken out of there, Mike. If we start with those, there's 5 goalkeepers. There isn't one, is there, that's standing out in terms of form? If you'd asked me about 6 months ago, I think I would have been like, Justin Bilo, is he injured? Why are you saying that he's not going first choice? But now after having some poor form, do you pick him? Is he the first choice? Do you look at Sillison and say, actually, it doesn't matter you're playing for NEC Nijmegen. You are experienced. You have been relatively informed in the Eredivisie. You get picked. Or does he go with Renko Pasveer, who's now gone out of form with Ajax and has been largely unfancied his whole career until his late 30s?
Yeah, I think that, you've got 5 there, and you can say, I think 2 are nailed on. And I think that the third spot is the one that's up for grabs. I think that Sillison's definitely on the plane. I think that from the words that he's had after the last international break, where Pasveer played both games, I think that Sillison came out and he was widely criticised for being, a few people like Wesley Sneijder and Van Vaart said he can be quite a troublesome teammate. But he basically came out and thinks that he's got assurances that he'll be number 1 when we go to Qatar. And I think that he will be in the squad because of that tournament experience. I think he will go there. I think Pasveer makes it as well. I think that he did well enough in the past 2 games against Belgium and Poland to warrant a place in the final squad. So I think that's 2 out of 3. Then it depends on who Van Gaal thinks could be the best penalty saver out of the next 3. I think Noppert drops out. I think he's been great for Heerenveen, but I think that him not getting a game during the last international period, I would say that's pretty nailed on that he'll get dropped. And there's a toss-up. It's basically a toss of the coin between Bio and Flecken. Flecken's been in decent form for Freiburg, where Bio's been up and down for Feyenoord. I've given my spot in my squad that I predicted to Bio, but if it was Flecken, I would not be surprised. Going to the tournament, I think Silison starts first game against Senegal, in my opinion.
Interesting. And Mike's had a lot of experience watching Netherlands for years. I'm sure people watching along thinking the same. So if you want to get involved in the comments, let us know who you think the starting goalkeeper would be. Let us know who your starting 11 would be for most of the games throughout the tournament. We're here to just look at the squad first of all before we go into that starting 11. In terms of defenders, a name that sticks out for me is Van der Ven. And I know that Martins Indy's been called up in the past for the Netherlands. Injury may well rule him out of this competition, as it has done. But he likes a left-footed central defender, doesn't he, Mike? Next to that left back. It's likely Daley Blind will be the starting left back, despite his problems for Ajax. Is he playing a relatively protected position, maybe? In the Netherlands, it means it's not a massive concern when he plays for Holland. Or is he going to be someone that does need replacing? There is going to be a different left back there, possibly Malacia. But the experiment, as I was saying, at centre-back might mean there's a spot for Van der Ven as a left-footed centre-back. Or does Stout come in? Is there a place for... It's just so tricky. There's a number of defenders there that should be getting to the squad. Timber, De Vrij, De Ligt. Although De Ligt hasn't been selected this time. As he picked up an injury, Mike, I'm not fully clued up on that. Van Dijk obviously gets selected. Tell us more about the defence.
Yeah, De Ligt is there. He's just at the bottom.
He's at the L, isn't he? He's not on the D.
Yeah.
I
was thinking that. I was like, I'm sure he's in there. I think it'd have been bigger news if he just dropped De Ligt out of nowhere. But yeah, he is in there. For defence, I think if we're talking about centre defence at the moment, so yeah, Van de Ven's he's playing every game basically this season for Wolfsburg, and he's doing well. He can play in the left back position. He can play in the centre.
Yeah,
I think that this call up is a nod to say you're doing well. You're part of what I think could be brought in if there's a couple of injuries. Does he make it to the final squad? No. Struijk came out today and said, I want to play for Netherlands over Belgium. Does he make the squad? In my opinion, no. The one that is the glaring one out of them, and you can call me biased for being a Newcastle fan, but Sven Botman, since he's signed for us, has been absolutely imperious. We've got the best defence in the Premier League, and he's started basically every game, and he's a left-footed centre-back. So I think that if you don't recognise the fact that he's doing it in the Premier League when he's keeping players, like we restricted Haaland to 1 goal when we played them. We just beat, at time of recording, we just beat Tottenham in the league as well. We're top 4. If you're ignoring Sven Botman after all that and picking Van de Ven or Pascal Struijk when Leeds are struggling, I would say that's a miss. I would say that's a bit silly. I think Sven Botman, for me, gets that left-footed centre-back position. Right. If Martin Zindi was fit, I think he would have picked him just for the experience. But I think if you're looking at the starting defence, it's going to be Timber on the right, Van Dijk in the middle, Ake on the left. If Ake has to drop out, Sven Botman would be a great replacement for that, in my opinion. So that's the ones that I would go with. I think De Vrij makes it in there, De Ligt makes it in there. But I think that you're going to have Van de Ven, Struijk dropping out for me. Mitchell Baker's probably going to drop out as well because you're going to have Blind and Wasia as the two left back positions. And then if you're looking at the right-hand side of the defence, Dumfries is on the plane, 100%. And then you're looking at a choice between Renge or Frimpong. And if you're going to play 5 at the back and you want your right back to be playing high up the pitch, it's got to be Frimpong. He's on fire for Leverkusen this season. I think he's got 5 goals in the Bundesliga. Renge is now benched at Ajax since Sanchez come back. Yeah, he's been really poor for Ajax. So if he picks Blind and Renge as the starting fullbacks, it says to me that he's not really watched enough Ajax this season and doesn't realise that could be a big problem. I think Frimpong makes it into the squad. I think if he misses out Frimpong and goes to Renge, that's a mistake because Frimpong can also go play for Ghana or he can go play for England. And if he doesn't think that he's ever going to get in here, I know that Van Gaal's going to leave after the World Cup and Koeman can come in and he might give him a bit of, you're going to be my right back, you're going to be in my squad. But right now, if I had to pick between Frimpong and Renge, Frimpong makes it every day of the week for me.
I just want to ask you a question about players playing well for their countries, not necessarily their clubs, or not playing at all for their club. Does that matter to you a lot, Mike, considering Memphis Depay probably won't get injured now that he's not really playing for Barcelona that much? But we've seen that it was a downfall of Wijnaldum, for example, not really playing for his club, not playing well for his club meant that he fell out of the squad. And there's a few others in there as well that haven't played a lot or impressed particularly at the club level, but for the Netherlands are standout because of what they've done in the past. And that's kind of why Silason's in there, right?
Yeah, I think that there's certain players that I would say in Van Gaal's mind are undroppable.
And I think
yeah, I think so. I think that not in the starting 11. I think he can be replaced in the starting 11, but I don't think you drop him completely out of the squad.
No.
Because of his ability on the ball, because he still does have that ability to create from the back, which Malacia doesn't. Defensively, I'd be worried if we're playing a back 4. I'd be really worried if it was Blind either in the centre or on the left, because I think that teams would target him. I still think Senegal will target Daley Blind if he starts that game. I think they'll have Mane running at him at every single possibility, and you'd have to have Ake sweeping up. Memphis is going to be there. It doesn't matter if he doesn't play a game for Barcelona from now until the start of the World Cup. If he's fit, Memphis goes. Because he's so vital to the attack. Now, you can say that that's a problem because Netherlands' attack isn't as strong as it's been in recent years and they don't really have that star striker up front. But how can you not recognise what Memphis has done for the country in the previous international? He's close to being the top goal scorer of all time. He's got the most assists of all time. I'm sure he's passed Robin for that. So how can you drop him just because he's not in the Barcelona squad at the moment? I think that would be short-sightedness, and I think that it'd be a detriment if you're going to say take out Memphis and play just somebody because he's playing. So say play Weghorst just because he's getting a game for Besiktas. I don't think you really look at it like that. I think you pick the best players, and Memphis still is the best attacker Netherlands have.
Yeah, and he will play hopefully each game. Hopefully he'll be the top goal scorer for the Netherlands at the tournament. You can see that kind of thing happening. He'll love it. He'll thrive in the tournament, won't he? In terms of midfielders and strikers, are there any others that you think that they're going to drop out? They're just there possibly in case there's an injury. Needs to be called in last minute. The one that draws my eye, for example, is Xavi Simons. So it's a bit of a nod to you will in the future be selected. You've had a good start to the season, but right now with a big World Cup coming up, not quite.
See, me and We don't disagree on a lot of things, but I disagree on him with you because I think that everybody takes a wild card to the World Cup, and Van Gaal did it in 2014. He took Memphis as a wild card, and he brought him on late in games to change things. He scored a couple of goals. If I'm looking at that midfield and I'm thinking who's going to drop out, I'm picking Jordi Clasie because he pulled himself out of the past couple of Netherlands squads.
Yeah.
I'm picking Ryan Gravenberch because he's not playing at all for Bayern Munich.
Daniel Malen.
Guus Tilt, Daniel Malen as well. I've got him out of the squad because he's been injury prone and he wasn't in the squad this weekend. Noah Lang, I'm picking him out because he's not getting a game fully for Club Brugge and his attitude apparently has been a bit off so far this season. So if I'm taking midfielders out, I'm taking out Till, Clasie, Gravenberch. If I'm taking out attackers, I'm taking out Lang, Malen, Weghorst, and Brobbey. I'm thinking Simmons is going to be his wild card.
Right.
I think he'll be the one that goes.
It's in process elimination. That makes sense. I can see totally why that would be. People might agree with you there, Mike, as well. I just think the things I've seen from him, he's obviously scored some goals. He's been exciting. He's been a breath of fresh air. Really pleased to see him play in the Eredivisie. It's just what he needed. But is he grown up enough yet for this kind of thing? I mean, people might take that and go, yeah, of course he is. What are you on about? But at the start of the season, I didn't think he was ready. I haven't watched him, to be fair, the last few games. I do tend to catch a fair number of PSV games. But for me, I still would take a Hust Till, knowing the threat he gives in the box. Let's say you lose in late in the game, there's 10 minutes to go. You're more likely to throw Tillum and Simmons, aren't you? Someone that can get in and around the box. Luke de Jong's probably going to be put in the squad for that same reason. You can win headers. And is that kind of play you throw in late in the game?
Yeah, I think that you're looking at Luke de Jong and Vincent Janssen being the ones, if it's late in the game near a goal, to chuck them in.
Yeah.
But if you're looking for somebody that's going to be creative now, look at that midfield. And a problem has been a number 10 position. You've had Gakpo playing there recently. He did really well in the past two international games. You got Berghuis, who's excellent for Ajax recently. But if you need a creator, then you bring in someone like Simmons, someone that's not scared to run at players, someone that's not scared to take a shot. Recently PSV played Arsenal in London, and the only PSV player that was actually looking like doing anything against Arsenal was Abby Simmons, because you'd take the ball, you'd run at somebody, it looked like he had absolutely no fear of playing in that game. That's what you like to see from him, because even though his age, Gakpo has been criticised often for not playing in the big games, showing his good form in big competitions. I don't think that's the same with Simmons. I think Simmons thrives under pressure. I think he does well in the big games. So I think there's an Ajax PSV game coming up soon.
Yeah.
I think if Simmons plays well in that one, he'll have booked his place in the squad. I think if that's before the squad announcement, PSV do well in that game. Simmons stars, Van Gaal picks him. I think that if PSV go on a run of bad form, they lost against Groningen, they go on a couple of losses, he doesn't play well, he doesn't score goals, doesn't give assists, maybe he'll drop out and he might go for somebody like Brobbey as the wild card off the bench because he's starting to score goals for Ajax. But at the moment, I'd like to see him in there just because I think that he's the future. Give him the tournament now, like they did with Memphis. Dick Advocaat said that he did the same when he first picked Arjen Robben for a tournament. Now, this is the person that's going to be a superstar in the future, but bring him in now just to give him a big tournament experience, give him that confidence that, we want to build the future around you. Because at the moment, he can still pick Spain. He spent most of his life in Spain. And he's not said 100% that he's 100% guaranteed to pick Netherlands. So I would just get him in there. Can't do much harm. He's more creative than half the players in the squad.
Yeah.
And I think that bringing him off the bench against Qatar, Ecuador, give him a cap. We'll see what he can do. See if he can thrive. That's the difference between Netherlands getting knocked out or Netherlands going on to win it. Who's that player that can come off the bench and do something a bit different than the rest of them? It's got to be Simmons, because if you're looking at the options, you bring off somebody and bring on Davy Klaassen. Is that going to change the game? Probably not. Luke de Jong, Weghorst, not really scoring goals for the clubs. Malen out. Dan Jumas is coming back from a long-term injury. Robbie's untested, and this sort of sort of field. So yeah, for me, I take Simmons, but I know that a lot of people would disagree with that and maybe think that there's other people that would be more of an experienced pick. But I just think you need to take a risk, and I think he's the risk worth taking.
Fair enough. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'll come back to us. That was a big talk about the squad there. And Simmons is, I can see your point of view, could be a wild card. Is he as good as performing on the big stage in a big World Cup? You could say, well, he's more informed than David Klaassen. And then I could agree with you. Klaassen's also had some really good games for Netherlands. So Van Gaal has some difficult decisions to make. In Van Gaal, we trust, though. That's becoming a little kind of prayer on football. We're just going to trust him. We're just going to see what he comes up with. But
when it comes to November 10th, he announces that squad, and there's Wrench, and there's David Klaassen, and there's Jordy Clasie in there, and all these players are getting picked over ones in form, then we've recorded this anyway, and we're going to win the World Cup. So yeah, it's fine.
We'll have Jordy Clasie at centre back. We'll have a Dirk Kuyt-esque experiment at left wing back again. Who do you think fancies it this time? David Klaassen.
Martins Indy will come back. Martins Indy will come back from injury just before the tournament. He'll be left centre back, so it'll be fine.
And he'll come on and take a penalty to send us through to the final. You just do these little things. Just never know. Who's your first 11 then, Mike? It was going to change game to game. Depends on who you're playing. Those first 3 games, Ecuador, Senegal, Qatar, they're games that they should be winning. They're games that they were set up to win. So it's not going to be like watch your lineup against Brazil. But who is your starting 11 going to be?
So the first game, I think they start off with their toughest game. The game against Senegal is going to be the one that they need to win. It's a huge test for them. If they win that game, you're saying basically they're going to probably come top. If they draw that game, then it depends on how they do against Ecuador and Qatar compared to how Senegal do. And then it's little things that might then mean that they finish second and face England in the next round, or finish top and then face USA. That first game is absolutely crucial. Now, there's a lot of pressure on that. So I think he'll pick what he thinks is the strongest 11. And this isn't the 11 that I would go with. This isn't my favourite 11. This is the 11 I think he would pick. So I've already said I think Cillessen starts in goal. Let's go for the easy ones. Dumfries at right back, Timber, Van Dijk, Ake. That back three was excellent during a recent international period against Poland and Belgium. They've played their way into that being the starting 11. Then you bring on De Ligt or you bring on De Vrij towards the end of the game when they're starting to get a bit tired. Daley Blind's at left back. I know that's controversial. I know that we all don't want him there, but I think Van Gaal trusts him. He keeps playing him. He's going to be there. Malacia, he started okay at Man United, but he's in and out the side now. I think Luke Shaw's now probably the number 1 left back for Man United. So I think it's going to be Blind. There's not really any other options to go there. He's not going to pick Bakker just to play him at left back, or Struijk to play at left back over Daley Blind. So I think he starts. Midfield 2, I've got Frenkie de Jong. And for this one, because it's the toughest one, it's a toss-up between Koopmeiners and De Roon. I think if he's wanting to go for a bit more defensive, I think goes De Roon. If they think he wants to go a bit more attacking, he goes Koopmeiners. So just for the argument, I've gone Koopmeiners. And then number 10, I've gone Berghuis over Gakpo. I think that Berghuis' form for Ajax recently has been excellent. I think he'll get a nod at number 10. And then ahead of him, we'll have Memphis, as long as he's fit. And the next thing will be Bergwijn, because that too, in recent internationals, has been on fire. Bergwijn, he might not be in the greatest form for Ajax, but when he puts on that Netherlands shirt, he seems to be scoring the goals at the moment. So I think that makes the most sense. I think that having them two with the pace that they have through the middle cause problems. So I think that's my starting 11 against Senegal.
There's a few things that I just want to question. The 3 defenders over the last international break were really good, but how is there no place for Stefan de Vrij? I admit I haven't watched him very much for his club. Like this season, I don't know how he's doing quite, but he's just been brilliant in the years gone by. We don't have De Ligt in the team at the minute, so does that not open a place for someone like De Vrij rather than Ake or Timber? Timber, who's one of those big players for the future. Does he get in over De Vrij?
I think so. I think with De Vrij, I think the Inter won the title last year, but I think De Vrij actually got a lot of criticism. Actually, I think that some Inter fans would have been happy to see him leave in the summer. So I don't think he's been in that great a form this season to say that he warrants a place in the starting 11. Now, you saw what happened during the Euros when Van der Boer was in charge. I think De Vrij was the main one. So I can't see it myself. I think that the past two games, I think that was the two games that Van Gaal was sort of shaping his side. And he mentioned about Lewandowski coming up against his best defence. Then someone said to him with Ake and Timber and Van Dijk, and he went, yeah. So he thinks this is his best defence. So I think this is when it starts. I think that De Ligt, yes, he's playing now for Bayern Munich. He didn't at the start, but he now seems to be in that 11 each game, playing 90 minutes, and he's doing well. But I think that he still has that sort of moment in him where he can give you a heart attack and just run out of defence and go for a challenge, and you think he's either going to get a red card and then ruin it like he did against Czech Republic, or he's just going to give away a handball in the box, he's going to give away a penalty somewhere. I think Timber and Ake are a bit more secure than that. I think Van Dijk as well, he's the leader. You can say what you want about Van Dijk's form this season for Liverpool. It's been very shaky. But in the Netherlands, he's undisputed. You can't drop him, he's going to start. So I think, for me, that's the defence. If you started De Vrij, I wouldn't say, oh, we're going to lose now. But I think he has more confidence in Ake and Timber. With them being a bit younger and with them having a bit more pace as well, I think that suits. Because if you've got Daley Blind on the left, you want somebody who's got a bit more about them to be able to cover them. So if you've got somebody that's aging like De Vrij next to them, yeah, he's very smart and he's very clever in what he does, but he doesn't sort of have the pace that someone like Nathan Ake has. And Nathan Ake is playing most of the games this season for Man City. He's not on the bench these days. He is starting for them, so I think that he warrants a place there. I think Timber has that ability on the ball, that young confidence that Van Gaal likes. So, yeah, I think that those three will be the starters.
Okay. The other things I thought of were Daley Blind. After this World Cup, I don't know, we'll talk about this more after this World Cup's happened and Koeman's in charge, but he might never get selected again. It just feels like we're going with him because the World Cup's coming. It's imminent. And we need to stick with someone experienced. But after that, it's like a clean slate. Drop him. He might never be selected again. Defensive midfield, there's a couple of what I would call the very good players, like Coat Miners and Jerome. But I don't know who is the strongest there. I think it might just come down to form and what Van Gaal imagines with his tactics. And the same goes for attacking midfield. Cody Gakpo, if he was playing absolute blinders against those big teams, but week in, week out, he would have A, probably been in the Premier League already, and B, he would be there, wouldn't he? He'd be the first choice attacking midfielder. But we're with Steven Berghuis, who was brilliant for Ajax in his last game against AKC Waalwijk, time recording. And he is probably one of the best players in the Eredivisie. That's still the case. His attitude, I don't know if I'd like to get to know him too much as a person, but he is a winner and he's a fantastic footballer. Playing as his number 10 is what we said about 1 year ago. We thought that by putting him there, you get the best out of him, and he doesn't always have to cut inside. He can do kind of whatever he wants. It'd just be really dangerous. And that's why he, at the minute, yeah, I agree with you, would probably be the starting attacking midfielder.
Yeah, I think that it's difficult because we don't really have that natural number 10 anymore. We don't have those Sneijers as Van der Vaart, those creative players. So you've got to pick somebody that's maybe a winger that's done it before. I think the Gakpo experiment worked during the last one. He got the assist. His crossing ability from corners is insane, and the amount of crosses he gets to lead to goals. PSV lost against Groningen 4-2, but both the goals that PSV scored were from Gakpo crosses. His accuracy from crosses is unreal. So that is a big bonus from if you're going to play corners and you've got the likes of Van Dijk and Ake who are so good with their heading ability. Somebody like Gakpo can put the ball in there and it'd be a chance. But Berghuis is a bit more consistent. Yeah, you can say that Gakpo scored and like his assists this season are insane. And there's all those tweets saying that he's on a level with Haaland in terms of goal contributions this season. But they're not coming against, the recent game against Arsenal, for instance, he barely touched the ball. He didn't get involved whatsoever. These goals and assists are coming against the Eredivisie sides. Now, Gakpo needs to perform against the Ajaxes, the Feyenoords, the AZs, and then perform in Europe to get that big move. Yeah, broke down to Manchester United in the summer. They might go again for him in January if he has a good World Cup. But then it was like the likes of Leeds and Southampton that were going for him. And I don't think he improves as a player by going to Leeds. I don't want to offend any Leeds fans there, but I think that his ceiling's higher than that. He needs to start proving it against the big teams. And so far, he's not done that for me. And you could say the same for Berghuis in the Champions League this season. Ajax haven't done that well. But he's still standing out as their best player. If you ask Ajax fans at the moment, who's their player of the season been so far, I think 9 out of 10 of them would pick Berghuis because he is carrying.
But he's just so quick as well. It's what he does on the ball and his passing. That's what makes him, for me, a little bit apart from Gakpo, because whilst he does have those games like Gakpo that where he might go a little bit missing, at least you can sub him off and bring on somebody else. But Berghuis can bring so much more in the build-up. Gakpo has probably got that higher ceiling, just purely because the fact he's younger. But the minute he reminds me a little bit of like, as an Aston Villa fan, a bit like a Leon Bailey, where, by the way, actually those two players are totally different. Gakpo is extremely hard-working. But it just fits to me like Bailey will pop up with a brilliant goal or two or like an assist or something and then go missing for a while. Whereas the same is happening with Gakpo, where he'll score 2 and assist 2 against, a Dutch team. Then in the Europa League, he goes totally missing. You're like, how is this player linked with the Premier League teams? You can see why he's still in the Eredivisie. It's so frustrating though, because I really like him. And in the Dutch league alone, he's really standing out.
Yeah, I think that when you put tweets out saying like, no, he's got like 16 goals and 11 assists, and you're like, oh, look how good he is. But then those people probably don't watch him against Arsenal or in the Champions League qualifiers or the bigger games, against the Ajaxes and stuff like that. But he has got such a high ceiling. I think that he did impress during the last 2 Netherlands games, and I would give him a chance. I think that having Gakpo and Berghuis as the 2 options for number 10 are 2 great options. So I think you can just switch to them. And I think that if Gakpo played at number 10, I'd be like, okay, here's his chance. He's going to impress here.
Yeah.
Go for it, take it. And, I'd want him to do the best. So I think that having those 2 there are great, because what's the other alternative? Davy Klaassen starts. So if you're going to, if I had to pick either of those, it's going to be Gakpo, Berghuis, and Davy Klaassen would be my 3rd option.
Yeah.
He wouldn't even be in my squad if I didn't think that I know how to pick a squad that I believe Van Gaal's going to pick. So I think that having them 2 behind Memphis and Bergwijn is great, because both of them can pass the ball, both of them can cross the ball, and both of them can run with the ball. So I think that those 2 over a traditional number 10 is the right move, especially if you're playing 5 at the back. So I don't have big worries about either of them, but after the World Cup, yeah, I'd say that is Gakpo going to reach the level that we expect him to or want him to? There's doubts because of what he does in the big games.
Yeah. And there's a few players as well that I know aren't fancied, but I tell you what, if the Netherlands are 1-0 up on Brazil and there's 10 minutes to go, there's no one I want more in that attacking midfield position than Davy Klaassen, because he's going to do a bit of everything, isn't he? Whereas maybe you don't want a Gakpo or a Berghuis on that time of the game. People might think I'm crazy for saying that, by the way, and I don't blame you. To have some left field ones sometimes, but there's a reason why he's in that squad. And for example, he played really well against Belgium the time that they beat him away from home, and he played I think the full 90 that game as well. There's times and places it's not all about who starts the match. There are times for substitutes to come in as well, and to be a 3rd choice goalkeeper and push the other 2 in the squad as well. And that's why I think Noppert might actually be selected as the 3rd choice, because he's had such a good season and can push everybody else. There's a place for him. But it's going to be close, and we can't read Van Gaal's mind. We need to touch upon the group, Mike. because it's not all is said and done already in this group. Ecuador, Senegal, and Qatar. You picked out Senegal as being the strongest team in that group. I once was on an Ecuadorian football podcast, and they said, "Tell us what the players you know about that play for the team." When before I researched coming on here, I didn't know anybody really. It feels like that, but there could be a bit of an unknown quantity perhaps Ecuador, and the Netherlands might have to be careful because they'll turn to a tournament with no pressure on them. Qatar, it's a little bit different. There's a different kind of quality kind of gap between the Netherlands and themselves, whereas Ecuador could be dangerous. And like you said, finishing first or second in the group could matter for the route to the final.
Yeah, I mean, we shouldn't fear England at the moment. England are on a downward spiral from what they were at the Euros. From what they've done at the Euros and getting to the final, and what they've shown since, I would say they're a nation on a downward spiral under the current coach. Yeah, they've got a number of fantastic young talents that are coming through, but I fancy the Netherlands to beat them because Gareth Southgate's going to play players that probably shouldn't be there, and they might not show themselves. If like the goalkeeper, for instance, if it's still, I've just had a mind blank of his name, Jordan Pickford. If it's still Jordan Pickford, if it's still the likes of Harry Maguire, if it's still the likes of Trent Alexander-Arnold's getting in there, I would fancy Netherlands to beat them. Van Dijk up against Harry Kane as well. I think it's a good battle, but I think Van Dijk shown before he can handle that. And Netherlands have a good record against England in recent years. But I still like Netherlands to avoid any big nations as far as you can go. And a last 16 game against USA has its own risks. You don't take them lightly. But same against Wales. You don't take Wales lightly because of what they have that can do something in a moment. Like Gareth Bale can score a free kick and then suddenly it's panic stations. So,
however, I think the point you're trying to make is if the Netherlands play to the best of their abilities, they should not be finding some of these teams a problem if they're playing to their best, which is what you need to be if they're going to win this tournament.
Yeah, but it's the same as the group. Like everyone's thinking Spain are going to do great at 2014. They come into it to get hammered off Netherlands in the first game, and then they struggle against Chile and they get knocked out. If Netherlands go into that Senegal game thinking this is going to be easy, Sadio Mane could score. The Senegal defense could have the game of their life, and it just goes. It's a very frustrating start. And then where do you go from there? Yes, Ecuador, they're an unknown quality, but there's a reason that they're there, and that's because they've got through South American qualifiers. And I know there's a player that plays for Brighton and in midfield that's very highly rated. His name escapes me now, but I think there are players that have quality and they've got a good team spirit who probably think in Qatar they've got nothing to lose because they're there, they can show themselves at a big tournament, and they could be the one that comes out of nowhere and does really well, like some African teams have done in the past, like Costa Rica did in 2014. That's the sort of quality they could be. They could be the ones that just out of nowhere does something, and then you think, where did they come from? They get a draw against Netherlands, they beat Senegal, they beat Qatar, and all of a sudden there's it's a joint three at the top of the group, and then the Netherlands get knocked out. So you do need to be careful. This group is on paper one that everyone's got to go. Netherlands got to win that, but they need to be switched on. I think Van Gaal's the perfect type of coach to get them switched on and say, look, you don't underestimate these sides. You go out, you play well. I do think that first game against Senegal is absolutely crucial. I think if they win that, we can start talking about them being already in the knockout phase, because I think as much as you've got to respect the hosts, this isn't South Korea and Japan. This is Qatar. They're not great. So, I mean, if you're not beating Qatar,
shouldn't be that.
You shouldn't be really be thinking about winning the World Cup. So if you beat Senegal first game, beat Qatar, that's 6 points you're through. Now, then you'll see who you get in the second round. It's a luck of a draw. It depends on how England do, how USA do, and how Wales can come up against them. So you got to just do what you can do in the group. If you told me that Netherlands aren't going to win this group, then I'd be shocked. But it happens to nations down in the past. They turn up to these things. There's too much confidence. They underestimate a team, and then it backfires. So I don't fear any of these teams except for Senegal and what Sadio Mane can do. So we'll see. But right now, if you want me to predict it, I'd say Netherlands top this group. But it's exciting, and I want them to go very far, and I think that this team can go very far. But you also have that little bit of nerves as well that it could go totally wrong. You could do a France or a Spain, and then just be that nation that is expected to do something that doesn't. And there's always one of them. So there's always going to be one that gets knocked out in the first round. It might be like the Portugals, and then everyone's having a go at Ronaldo. It could be the Argentinas, and then everyone's saying Messi's finished. But yeah, it could be the Netherlands that fail. Sadio Mane could get in behind Virgil van Dijk, score a winning goal, and then you've got a Liverpool element to it. So there's headlines that could be made in every game. But yeah, I'm thinking 3 wins out of 3. Start a group, great, go in the next round and take it from there.
But the same happened last time Euros. We had those wins, and then all of a sudden it went wrong when they come against a good team. But yeah, if you follow it as it kind of should happen, you are looking at Argentina coming up, tough team. Then after that could be one of those big teams in the tournament, one of the favourites. And by that point, though, I think by the semi-finals, you've got to beat those teams to be the best. So, but let's not get too carried away with the run itself. I think what will happen will happen. What will come will come. But before we finish, Mike, before we get people involved again in the comments, ask everyone for what they think the chances will be. What do you think will happen this World Cup?
I think come the end of the World Cup, Van Gaal will be getting a boat ride down the canals in Amsterdam with a World Cup trophy, saying, he's done it. He returned third time lucky. They beat Brazil 2-0 in the final. Xavi Simons comes off the bench and scores a double. But yeah, that would be a dream scenario for me, to see Netherlands finally win a tournament. Being born the year after 1988, I've never seen them win anything. They go, all these teams that have come through, they've been so fancy to do something. They always lose it, last minute semi-finals, finals. This could be the year. I think I've got so much faith in Van Gaal as head coach that I think that this group of players, what they have, we can win it, and I want us to win it. So I'm going to be positive and say that this could be Netherlands' year. I don't fear any other nations. I think there's some that are going there with great players but not great team spirits. So I don't really see any reason why Netherlands can't go all the way, and that's what I'm sticking to.
Fair enough. That's what makes this podcast 100 right there. Thinking of Van Gaal ride down the canals of Amsterdam with a trophy in his hands. You love to see it. I think that it would be big disappointment if they don't get to a semi-final. I think they're going to play a big tough team and then the quarterfinals, but they will get through that. And I think anything less than that is going to be disappointing. I know you touched about that like pretty much at the beginning of this podcast. I think we'd be happy with getting to the last 4. But what do we really want to see? We want to see the Netherlands either get to the final or win the whole thing. But I know that anything less than winning it would be disappointment anyway, just from a fan perspective. That we're proud of a Dutch for going far, but it feels like there is a chance. I think that's what I mean when I say about disappointment. We're not an outsider. We're actually one of those dark horses that there are a number of things that are lining up here. There's a story that can be told from this. That doesn't mean it will happen, but when you look at England, who have been so strong, doing so poorly, when you see we haven't heard much about Brazil lately. We might when it gets around to the World Cup, but they don't all of a sudden have 3 or 4 or 5 world-class players there. And it kind of levels the playing field that this is kind of happening. Because of that, it could be the Netherlands that take advantage of it. But let's get everyone else excited in the comments. Please do comment below what you think will happen at this World Cup. What are the chances for Netherlands? What would you be happy with? Do you genuinely see the Dutch winning the World Cup? What is your starting 11 for the first game? There's loads of things we want you to get involved with, so please do comment below. And of course, if you enjoyed this podcast 100, give us a like, subscribe if you're new. Can't believe it's taken 100 podcasts for some of you to notice us and subscribe. But if that is the case, get involved now because the World Cup's coming and there's lots more coming from Football-Oranje. Much more to check out on the website too, and the Twitter. Any last comments to make, Mike?
Yeah, I think that, let's enjoy it. It's not a big tournament. It's going to be strange having it in November. But yeah, there's going to be pretty much from now until it kicks off. There's going to be coverage of predicting the squad. There's going to be, when the squad comes out, in-depth profiles of the players, stuff like that. Just about the excitement of ahead of the tournament, and then during the tournament, let's just enjoy it, get behind the Netherlands, enjoy them being at a tournament again. After up since 2014, there's a lot of excitement. Let's just get behind the players, not get too annoyed with the squad selection when he picks players like Davy Klaas and Divine Range. But yeah, it's exciting. I'm excited for it, and yeah, I think it's gonna be a good one, and there's plenty to look forward to on the site. So yeah, hopefully everyone enjoys it.
Yeah, thanks for joining me, Mike. And we'll say it again. There's lots more to come from us, so do stay tuned. One last little plug, and that will be to keep an eye on what we're doing on YouTube too. Might be some more things in lead up to the World Cup, but of course, like we were doing before, there'll be something after each game throughout the tournament for you to get involved in a live stream as well. So watch out for those. They'll be probably after full time in each of the games. But that's enough for us for now. Give us a like, subscribe if you're new, and comment down below. Get involved. Thanks for watching.